Hey, I have an agent tip for you regarding terminations. And there are three different kinds of terminations that we deal with on the regular basis as agents, right? We have a buyer who just decides that they no longer want to work with us, or something happened in their finances and they just, cannot move on to go buy a house, or that you and they just don't get along. Then there's a listing agreement, same thing. You might not get along. They might decide not to sell. They might decide they actually love their house anyway, and they don't want to deal with working with an agent. They might decide, oh no, we can sell it better on our own. Yeah, right. They might not get along with you, or maybe the house has been sitting and it's not been selling. So for whatever the reason, those two happen. And then there's also a purchase and sale. And we do see terminations with purchases and sales for a myriad of reasons. I want to talk to you about all three. Okay, we're going to start with the buyer brokerage agreement. Um, and I think the most common termination that I see with the buyer brokerage agreement is a buyer that decides to come from a lead source. And if they're in a lead source like Zillow or whatever, and you get them under contract in order to show them a house, and they, decide that they're not going to move, or they decide they like somebody else, or they decide, oh, well, that person's prettier, or whatever. And I'm sorry, but that does happen. Um, Okay, they're locked into a contract, and that contract literally states that if they decide to purchase a house during that time period, they are responsible, they can be responsible for paying compensation, even if you didn't show the house. It's the buyer brokerage agreement that controls. It used to be procuring costs, no longer so much so. So, first off, make sure that when you're working with a buyer, you can head a lot of this off with just a conversation. Listen, I understand you're coming from Kansas and you found me on Zillow, or you found me on whatever lead source it is. I just want to explain how our buyer brokerage agreements work in Georgia. Now, across the nation, in order for you to see a home, you will need to sign some sort of an agreement with an agent. We can make that one day, we can make it 10 days, we can make it just for this house. But most buyer brokerage agreements, if we decide to really work with each other, they're going to be for 6 months or so. And anytime during those 6 months, you know, I hope to find you the house of your dreams. But if for some reason you decide that this agreement is not going to work out and you want to terminate the agreement, you can just tell me you want to terminate the agreement and we can terminate the agreement. Now, when you do that, the buyer brokerage agreement in the state of Georgia with the GAR forms states that if you go under contract on a house during the time period that is on our buyer brokerage agreement, whether it's active or terminated, you may owe compensation for that sale. How enforceable is that? We'll see. We'll see. So you'd have to, I don't want to get into the details of what you'd have to do to enforce that. But if you tell people that up front, that this is what they're agreeing to, that will help mitigate some of the damage done if they decide that they want to terminate. Because once they read that and they realize that this is a legal binding contract that they've signed and they understood it when they signed it, and things aren't working out between you and them, don't you think they're going to probably hang on to it anyway? Maybe they'll talk to you about whatever issues they are having with you. Like, hey, I really kind of wanted to terminate this, honestly, because I don't see communication happening. Like, I've texted you and you don't text back within 10 minutes. And you can tell them, like, that's not reasonable. 10 minutes is not reasonable. I do have other clients. I may be showing another house. I might be at a listing appointment. So within 24 hours, if I don't get back to you, well, that's one thing, but 10 minutes is not. Please understand that you are not my only client. Maybe you can work it out that way. And if you say, listen, I promise within 12 hours, I will return your text or return your calls. Is that acceptable? Work it out with them. Don't be defensive. Just try and work it out with them. If it's something like, well, you're only sending me properties in Cedartown, and I don't want to live in Cedartown. I want to live in Cartersville. Well, oh, I can fix that. Just change your portal. No problem. I'm so sorry. And maybe I misunderstood. Maybe wrote it down wrong. Just try and work it out between you and the buyer instead of them just deciding, yeah, this isn't working and I'm moving on. Maybe that would help. There is something you can put in your special stipulations to help cover your cost of expenses like drive time, etc. You can also do a retainer fee, but I know a lot of agents don't want to charge a retainer fee because if they charge a retainer fee, the buyer might never sign the contract, never see the house, never work with you. So anyway, I just encourage conversation and explaining upfront everything that's in the contract. Okay, so let's move on to listings because this happens quite a bit too, especially in this market where listings are taking a lot longer to sell. So first off, and I know I gave this tip before, when you're talking to a seller and you're looking at that area and you're thinking, okay, he wants to put it on the market within 2 weeks. So you've got this 2 weeks. Well, now you've got to look at what is the average days on market and where is the market trending? Okay. So look at the last 90 days, the last 6 months maybe, but definitely the last 90 days. Because if you're in a changing market, so let's say, it's spring, okay, like it's spring right now. So spring right now, this is the market where a lot of listings are hitting the market, generally speaking. Buyers are looking, prices tend to have a tendency to rise, and it's a pretty strong market. It's very, very different from the fall and winter. So if you're in February and you do a 6 months, that's not going to be normal. So you might want to look at, just 90 days. Anyway, give them the average days on market, give them the highs, give them the lows, look at their price range for this. What their price range is in their area within like a 10-mile radius or something like that. So they know upfront what to expect. Because I think a lot of times sellers, especially in this market, they're thinking, well, every listing that I'm seeing is flying. Well, yeah, but they're looking at $200,000 homes. Yeah, they're getting multiple offers, but they have a $500,000 home. $500,000 homes not selling in hot speed. They're taking a long time. They're taking 3, 4 months, sometimes longer than that. So make sure that you educate your sellers upfront, and that will alleviate a lot of the concerns because I've ended up talking to some of the sellers that were working with one of our listing agents or two of their listing agents or whatever. And their concern was it's taking so long to sell, and I don't know if she's really doing or he's really doing everything that he needs to sell it. And then I look at their average days on market and it's 100 days and they're at day 60. So, if that's the case, hey, I want to confirm. I just want you to understand that, your average days on market in your area for your price range is about 100 days. So they're actually, I mean, I see that they've marketed on the MLS. I know that they're marketing it well. I've seen them do this and that. Have they done an open house? I mean, we can talk about the things that they've done to market it. I don't want that phone call from that seller. Okay. I want that seller to call you and say, hey, I'm getting a little concerned. I'm getting nervous. And you give them a market update. Tell them what's going on. If the market changes in the middle, like I know there was one year that everything was flying. Like we had a great market going on. And then it was like July 1st, I think it was. It was like the literal brakes got stuck and everything stopped. And everyone was going, what in the world just happened? I'm not getting any showings. I was seeing, 5 showings a week, and now I'm at zero and for 2 weeks, and I don't know what's going on. And that happens. Well, when that happens, let your sellers know, hey, this is happening everywhere. Make sure you're having those discussions with your fellow realtors or your fellow agents in the office. We have the Max One Rockstars page to talk to other agents. Call the broker hotline number. Call me. Like I see a lot of the contracts. Oh, broker hotline number. So this is for the broker response team. And that broker's response team, this is 5, 6 agents now that are associate brokers with our firm that take call at that phone number. It rings all of their phones, and whoever's available will answer the call. And they should be able to either tell you how to find out the answers. They might be able to give you some ideas to get over some speed bumps with the seller or whatever. The broker support email is another great place to go. This goes to over 50 plus brokers and owners. So, like every franchise owner we have, Dana Sparks, it goes to Dave Kubat, our founder. And a lot of the associate brokers and from, all the different areas. So over 50 plus people will look at that email. And if you're saying, hey, my listing is sitting or my listing just suddenly stopped and I don't know what I'm doing, like I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I don't know if this is normal. Is anyone else experiencing this? People will jump on that email and they will tell you and give you advice. So I don't want you to ever think that you just only have me to call. You have a lot of people that are in your corner and trying to help. The other thing is on the weekends, sometimes I may be on the lake or I might be unavailable or may not have cell phone service or something like that. Or, there are times even during the week where I'm in meetings back to back to back with agents or with vendors or whatever. Call the weekend broker on duty um, on the weekends, only the weekends. Call that number only on the weekends. So from Friday night through Sunday at 770 number, you can call that number, and that is a rotated call that all the franchise owners and brokers take rotation on that. So I have a week too, I think it's 8 times. But during the week, call the broker response team if you can't reach me, or if you want like a different idea or a different thought. So that is all I'm going to say about that. I'm going to leave that. I'll just leave it at the bottom of the screen. Um, Okay. When somebody is at their wit's end and they just say, I don't want to work with you anymore, sometimes it's better just to let them go. And I know that that's hard, and I know nobody likes it. I had a seller decide not to sell once, and I had them under contract for like right about list price. And the buyers decided to back out. And it was a really nice house and it was it was going to be a very nice paycheck. They backed out and the seller said, I no longer want to do this. We want to keep our house. It might go for more. It sold so quickly. Well, at that time, that's what was going on. Houses were selling quickly. Sometimes it's worth it just to say, okay, no problem. Listen, to remove it from the MLS, there's a $25 per MLS fee. So I've got you in FMLS, I've got you in Georgia MLS, so I just need a $50 check. And that's made out to maximum one community, and turn that in and you're good to go. Other times you might want to go after, hey, I spent $300 on videos and I spent, Facebook boosting and I did this and I did that. I did an open house that cost $100. You may want to get them back for get money back for your expenses. And it's actually written into the contract that you can request that. If they refuse to do it, is it really worth the fight? I'm just saying. Um, think about, what the repercussions of that could be if a seller decides, I just don't think it's the right time to sell, and you've done that work. Yes, you can ask for your stuff, your, expenses back. If they get angry and they refuse to, and they, tell they're going to write up all these reviews, these bad reviews, and plaster you all over Facebook and do all this stuff to you and try and sue you and whatever. Is it really worth going after that? Or is it worth it just write it off as an expense and move on? By the time you get done fighting some of these things, you could be having 3, 4 other listing appointments. Uh, You know, I'll stand behind you whenever I can and whenever I feel like it's reasonable. Okay. Okay. Moving on. Purchase and sale. Purchase and sale. You have a buyer that is very happy to buy. You have a seller that's very happy to sell. They come together, they get under contract, everything's groovy, everything's going smooth, and then you hit a speed bump. So you remember last year in our sales meetings, we had legendary closing stories. I had those legendary closing stories in there, and we had all different kinds of agents tell stories about speed bumps that they got over. Some of them had the ridiculous amount of speed bumps with former attorneys redlining contracts that they can't do that. We had, gosh, thing after thing after thing with mobile homes. We had land issues. Like, I mean, there were so many of them. You should go back and watch those videos of the sales meetings and get to the legendary closing stories. Listen, we are negotiators. That's part of our job. Sometimes things come up and you just have to figure out how to get over the speed bump. Okay. Don't just let it derail you and terminate a contract. I have very rarely ever terminated a purchase and sale that I was representing either buyer or seller. Most of the time, these things can be worked through. But every now and then I run into an agent that just seems like one out of five contracts terminates, or, you know, they have five contracts on a listing and they just keep terminating, terminating, terminating. And sometimes that just happens, and sometimes it can be avoided. So sometimes you may not realize how to avoid it, and you need something of constructive criticism or some ideas, something creative that will help. So again, broker response team, right? So yeah, call me and I might have an answer, I might not have an answer, I might have an idea, I might not have an idea, but I'm not the only one you can call. You have the broker response team. You have Max One Rockstars. You should all be members of the Max One Rockstars Facebook page. There are like every agent, so there's over 1,000 agents that should have access to that, that may have ideas and may have run into the same exact issue that you're running into. They may, have figured out how to work with a listing agent that won't answer the phone and will only respond to text and is rude because that happens. And sometimes that causes animosity and it causes terminations to occur when it doesn't have to. Well, there are ways that you can get that agent to respond. There's ways to work around just about everything. I've been amazed at some of the stories that I've heard with those legendary closings. Some of them are speed bumps that I wouldn't have known how to get around, but agents figured it out. So again, broker response team, the broker support email is again a wonderful way to look at it too, because I might give you some advice and say, hey, yeah, why don't you reach out to the listing agent, or why don't you reach out to the buyer's agent and see if you can't come to some kind of a compromise. Yeah, I know it's money related. Maybe it's $1,000. Maybe you add in 500, they add in 500. Will they work that out? There's lots of ways to overcome objections. So anyway, if you don't like my answer, or you need another answer, or whatever, or just to see what kind of answers you get, go to the broker support email. There is nothing wrong with that. Over 50 brokers and owners like myself are there watching for that email and will respond. And sometimes you get like really creative ideas. I learn a lot from it myself, from brokers that have been brokers for 30 years, because I haven't been broker for 30 years. Also, on the weekends, you can call the broker on duty at the 770 number below. But okay, so let's go over that again. What are the things you can do? If you run into an issue and you can't figure out how to get over the speed bump, you can call me. You can call the broker response team and hear from them. You can go on Max One Rockstars and see if other agents have dealt with a similar situation, what they did to overcome the issue so that buyer and seller don't terminate and don't end up in bad blood. You can contact the broker support email system. You can go onto the agent community, MX1 Agent Community, which is a Facebook group that if you're not a part of, please ask to join. It will only be accepted if you are a Max One community agent, either Realtor or Realty, but we will accept you, and you'll get great advice from your peers. There's usually a way around termination. Not always. Sometimes there just isn't. but there's usually a way around termination. So I'd like to help you mitigate that and limit it. So I hope that helps. I hope that tip was helpful to you. There are times when I had a buyer one time that was incredibly rude and just very I just didn't want to work with her. She was a horrible person to work with and very like condescending and just, it's not worth it sometimes. Just cut ties, move on, find another buyer, find another seller. Sometimes it's not worth the emotional agony of what you're going to go through to fight with that person and keep them. And then there's times where it's on principle and you've done everything you can do. So I just want to encourage you to keep terminations to a minimum. And if you have any questions, feel free to give me a call and I will be glad to help. Okay. Have a great day. I hope this tip helps you and it keeps you under contract. Thanks.